Chapter 21. Nushi, and horny things. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mex pointed to the left corner of the second level when we reached the top of the stairs. Down there is Nushi's room, but I am going to retire for a bit, and I will see you when you return. Don't worry about bringing back proof or anything like that, you can just show me your MP total when you get back, and I will show you how to do that as well, Mex said with a smile, and then turned to the right, and head to the room in the opposite corner of his daughter's. Thanks, I said before turning to go to the next room, but I took my time. I was partially worried that the girls would just forget me, but another part of me told me I was an idiot for thinking something like that. I reached the door faster than I wanted, but there was no waiting around. I still had to run to the village and deal with the Sawajin before it got dark and got back. I knocked at the door, and I heard Jilly call to come in, so I lifted the latch and entered. The room was all books. The cast was just a square with a turret on each corner, but this one was lined 3 stories in the air with shelves of books. Out of nowhere, a cloud of white smoke appeared, and my 3-headed girl clamped her arms around my waist, hugging me. I wrapped my arms around their little ebony-skinned body, and I felt the warm, soft, and exciting feel of the girl's 3 soft breasts. "Did you bring meats?" Mary hissed, sticking her head around from where she was hidden by Jilly. "No, meat right now, but I will make some for you later once I come back," I said as I pet each of the 3 girls' heads, but I had to pull away when all 3 started to lick my bare chest. Being short and heavy-chested, combined with the lick, made me stand out, and I didn't want the girls to think that I was a pervert. I figured that the girls probably liked the salt from my sweat, but that didn't help my male brain. All I could think was there was a 3. In point 1, stacked petite hottie pushing her naked chest into me while licking me. I would still have to pay for this kind of treatment in my old life, but the girls didn't need that side of me right now. "We need to get you girls some clothes. I am a man, and I can't help how I feel when I see your naked bodies. So, do you think you girls could find some clothes? Or I can see about getting you some if that is okay." I asked the girls as I walked into the room. "I have no problem with it, but you can look at mine all you want and do what you want," Jilly said seductively while bouncing up and down. The effect was almost enough to put me into a trance, but I rolled my way out of it as I finally could fully see Mary and a cute dark blue-skinned girl resting in her coils. The girl was a beauty, but one thing might make getting close to her hard. The girl had a pair of horns that came out of the top of her head. Then they ran directly down the side of her face, stopping at her jawline. Then they ran into sharp points that stopped in front of her mouth, so no kissing those lips then. "Hello, you must be Mex's daughter, Nushi." "I am Kaz, I was just coming to check up on the girls before I left," I said, trying to give my best smile and not look like it was forced. "Yes, the girls have been telling me about the stupid thing you have been doing, but you are not from this world. What do you want then? You have seen the girls, now, don't you have a job to do for my father?" Nushi asked with a whole lot of attitude. I had to strain to keep the smile on my face, and I was sure the look was far less convincing than it was before, but it was better than my scowl. So this is what Mex had meant, his little girl was actually a bear, not a demon. "Do your horns have to grow like that?" Deciding that ignoring her was the best option, it seemed to catch her off guard, so I went with it and then stepped towards her to better look. Nushi shied back from my hand, and I stopped and stood back up straight. I would leave her be for now, and the girl was right, I did have a job to do. Even if I cut them off, they grow back like this, okay? Nushi shouted at me and then turned away, crossing her arms over her ample chest. "How fast do they grow back? And does it get her to cut them off?" I asked, starting my advance again. I moved over and sat down on the bed beside her for a moment. I was wasting precious time, but depending on her answers, I might be able to do something to help since they were horns. "They take about a day to grow back, and they don't hurt, but it hurts my head when they get broken," Nushi said, turning to me. "Let me cut them off, and then when I get back, I will try something to get them to curl instead of going straight. That must make it hard to eat with, I said, thinking that it would make it hard to do a lot of other things that didn't need to be mentioned. Can you fix them? Nushi asked in astonishment. Just be careful of what you ask of him, or you will end up with another pet like us, Jilly said conspiratorially, and I glared at her. You know just as well as I do that none of you are my pets, you are all friends that I am helping. I said, while still glare at Jilly, who waved her hands around in the whatever gesture. I is not pets. Mary turned and hissed at Jilly but then pointed to her snakes, who also started to hiss. These arrest the pets. Damn it, her cuteness was going to kill me before any monster could. Author note. In chapter 3 and 5 I added B/W pictures of Jilly and Mary. Chapter 22. Sliced, brings back some treats. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I turned back to Nushi after the other two settled down. Don't listen to Jilly, I just want to help you. The way that your horns grow must make life hard for you, I said to Nushi. She was looking at her hands that were fidgeting in her lap. Nushi looked like she was deciding on something, so I grabbed my loose leaf dagger and held it out from me. I glared at the blade because I knew it was going to try and make some kind of protest when I asked it to cut her horns off if she would let me. I didn't want to have to fight with the blade in front of the girl I was offering to cut part of her head off. I didn't feel any resistance from the knife as I held it in my hands. Last time the knife had felt hostile when I had tried to cut the branch, but I knew that wasn't a job for a sharp knife. Maybe the blade worked on intuition or something like that. I knew that I should be using a tool like that for that job. This time it was different. This job was something that I needed the knife for, and there was no other that could do the same as it could. I swore I felt the knife, get happy at my comment. Maybe I was more sentient than I thought, but I would have to run some tests in the future, but for now, Nushi looked like she had gathered her resolve. If you cut them off, and you come back before tonight, then they will only have grown a little bit, but I am warning you, man. If you touch my hair. Nushi said as she started to get ready to give me a good ear to work, but I didn't have time for that, and I was done. Done, I said as the two horns fell away, and just like she had said, the horns were not like normal ones I have helped to cut off before. In the past, I had helped on numerous local ranches and farms with things like dehorning, nutting, tagging, and numerous other things, so I was familiar with the inside of a horn. The horns had nerves in them, and they spared blood, and it hurt them when you cut off a horn, but Nushi's were different. They were all horn and no nerves and no squirting blood, thankfully. I didn't have any talcum powder to cloud it if I did, but that would look funny to see my shaking baby powder all over her hair. What? Nushi said in confusion as she looked at the horns that were lying on the bed now. The loose leaf dagger I had used had cut as close to her scalp as it could get without hurting her, and it had even rounded the cut. I reached forward and ruffled Nushi's hair a bit, and she puffed out her cheeks cutely like a spoiled child as I did. Okay, now you can barely even notice them, and now I can see your pretty face, I said, moving my hand down to her cheek, and Nushi started to blush furiously and pulled her face out of my hand. Shut up. Get out and go kill that monster my father told you to. Nushi yelled at me, and I smiled and turned to go, but the girls were waiting back in dog form, wagging their tails, and I petted each one. Sorry girls, you will have to stay here with the others while I go. I can't protect you yet, and I am going to have to move fast, but when I get back, we will try out your skills, okay? I asked the girls, and they nodded. Brings back some treats, Mary hissed as I walked back to the door, making me smile. I will try and find you all some nice treats on my way back. Do you all like fish? I asked as I turned back to the girls. Meats. I likest them all. Mary said as she reared up and then grabbed Jilly and started to lick her. Get off me, you slobbering fool. Go lick Kaz. Jilly complained as she tried to figure Mary off but failed, and then finally gave up and let Mary lick her. I turned and left the room. I had already used enough of my time, and it was already the afternoon. I would have to make good time if I wanted to make it back before dark. I closed the door behind me, and there was no one around, but when I turned back from closing the door, there was a little old female red-skinned demon standing in front of me. I jumped back in reaction to the demoness, and the old woman gave me an evil-looking smile. Good reaction. Mex was right, you are a wuss, the old granny demon told me. This must be Nishi, but she was a dark red, not blue, but that must be what Jilly had mentioned about her being a higher-ranked demon. I was going to have to watch my words with this one. She didn't seem to have a problem with people if your kin were any representation of that. Yeah, I guess you could say that. I'll get stronger, though, just take some work on my part, I said, figuring that just having an ideal conversation would be best, and I was right, thankfully. Yes, maybe with some proper meat on your bones, you might be alright, but for now, you're just a weakling that my grandson is taking pity on. No wonder that useless beast always stays number 3, always being too nice to the natives, like they own the place or something. Your lot come through here and then just die anyways, but my dear Mex always wants to help, Nishi said, rolling her eyes. Well, I am thankful, but I do need to get going, what? I said in confusion as I looked around. Nishi was gone. Chapter 23. Tests, there is something wrong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. That was more than strange, the old woman had just vanished, and that was disconcerting. If she could just appear and disappear without warning, then I would have to be a lot more cautious about the things I said about her. It would probably just be best to get in the habit of not talking bad about anyone in this world. I was a little fish in the ocean right now, just waiting to be swallowed up by whatever came along next, so I don't want to make any early enemies. I walked down the walkway and back to the stairs. The grass carpet was nice to walk on, almost like a padded floor, and the whole place seemed to have a permanent wood-stained smell. I hadn't really had a chance to look around or really take in everything. Since I had come to the world, I constantly moved and met new people, and it was still only the first day. The railings and everything was all a dark color, and the sounds of the fountain made me feel a bit more centered as I walked down and out of the castle. The yard was the same as before, empty, and there were still guards up to lazing around. Heading out of the castle wall gate, the friendly guard with the wife, Liddy, waved and nodded to me, but the one called Trig ignored me. I was more than okay with but I would have to ask the other guard's name on the way back. I got to the other side of the bridge, and then I realized a blatant fact. That you forgot to ask for directions. I nearly jumped out of my skin as I whipped around to find Mex staging behind me with a self-satisfied smile. He was now shirtless like me and in some rough-looking shorts, and he threw a pair almost identical to me. What's the deal? Saving the idiot me a trip out here so you could give me directions? I asked suspiciously. Change your pants, they will just wear out fast once we get going. These shorts are of good material and will let you move more freely. Since we are running, you're going to have to keep up. I would like to introduce you to some of my friends on the way. We won't stay long, but chop, Mex said, but he was giving me a severe look. I quickly changed my dirt jeans into my shorts, but it took me a minute to get my belt and the knife and flashlight that I had yet to try. Something about the flashlight told me not to touch it and that I would know when the time was right. I also grabbed my torch lightsaber thing, but the shorts had no pockets, so I decided to carry it with me. I had no idea where we're going other to the left at some point to the west. I nodded, and we started on a brisk run north for about 500 meters, and then we turned into the forest. The trees all had bright green leaves, and the ground was littered with multi-colored flowers and tangles of vines. I could hear the sounds of bugs buzzing in some strange high-pitched clickings, but as we ran, it felt like we were the only ones here. The birds chirped and called, but none flew around. It was almost like the forest had stepped aside for us to pass. I also noticed that when I stepped too close to the vines, they would try and stretch to me, and when I slowed briefly, one tried to grab my foot. The flowers also hissed at me when I got too close to them. I discounted the noise at first, but when I got too close to a tree that had some flowers growing on it, then things started to hiss at me like snakes. I was only momentarily distracted, but they did make me think about Mary's snakes hissing at me. Suddenly, Mex slowed down and then stopped, turning to me. I slowed down to a stop and waited to see what he had to say. The severe expression was gone from his face, but now a tired one replaced it. So, Kaz Foreman, I have come out here with you today to introduce you to my 4 elementary friends, but first, I would like to talk to you about Nishi. I know you had a brief encounter with her, and I am sure that you got a small measure of her power just from that short exchange, yes, no. Mex said wearily. You both were able to sneak up on me without me noticing, so I guess you are both strong, but I wasn't able to see a real difference, I told Mex, kicking a vine away that was trying to attack my foot. What? Wait. I am going to get very scary looking, but I want to try something, okay? Mex asked me. Sure. Why, what's up? I asked back, and Mex looked up but then looked back at me with a scowl. There is something wrong with you, and I want to see how wrong it is, Mex said as his skin started to ripple. Veins under Mex's light blue skin grew enormous, and I could watch them pump blood as his muscles writhed under his skin. Mex grew and expanded to almost twice his size, and he no longer looked like a friend but he was just showing me something, but he did not look impressed. Nothing. Not even a little bit of fear or worry. Mex snarled at me, reaching out to the side. A black hole opened in the air as he did, and Mex reached inside, grabbing something. When he grabbed the thing, the black hole moved away from Mex and unveiled a massing straight black greatsword. Hey, what's the big sword for? I asked, looking at the gigantic etched 2-meter-long blade of black, some kind of metal that I had never seen, it almost had a green shine to it. More tests, Mex said as he advanced on me. Chapter 24. Thanks, oh great eye in the sky. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hey. What's the big idea? Why do you want to fight me all of a sudden, I said, backing away from him. While Mex himself didn't bother me, the massive black blade in his hand was a different story. I clicked the button on my lighter, and my flame blade extended out, and I held it with 2 hands and prepared to fight. Mex drew back the sword quickly but let it go behind him, sending it through 2 trees before it disappeared back into the black hole that it had come from. The hole had just appeared out of nowhere, and he had been able to get the weapon out reasonably fast, maybe even faster if he wanted to. Interesting, I am sorry about that, but I needed to test some things, and I am still not done, but the rest can be done on the way. Now, about Nishi, you can see how easily I can wield that massive blade and the power I can put behind it. Mex asked as he shrunk back down and the 2 trees crashed down behind him. Yeah, that's wild how strong you are, and I am glad you didn't swing it at me, I said as I clicked my sword off and the heat from it stopped. It was hot enough out here already, even with only shorts on, I didn't need to be carrying a torch. Nishi does use weapons, she is the weapon with her magic and grossly disproportionate strength compared to her size. You can't even tell when she is mad, except for the increase in fear, but that seems to be an issue with you, and I am not sure if it's good or bad, Mex said, looking at me curiously. Yeah, thanks, little birdie. Chapter 25. I don't have to, but you know I'm going to. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I watched as the pile of dirt and rocks slowly rose up from the ground and in the shape of an overweight man that was almost 3 meters tall. Not a titan, but then, he was still a lot bigger than me. Grogville. You still look as fat and out of shape as ever. You know, for a creature that doesn't eat, you sure do put on a lot of weight. Mex joked as he walked forward towards the rock man. And you're still hiding from your grandmother. Who is the skin bag you have with you? Not like you to bring people around, Grogville said as he was looking me over. You would hide from her as well if you have to live with her. You are lucky that she can't reach you right now. This is Kaz, and I think that he might be able to help me with my problems, but he came to the world with a support system, not a fighting one, Mex explained, and that made Grogville walked over to me. I had to put my arms out as he walked, the ground shook that bad. Even as big as he was, there is no way that he should have made the ground shake as much as it was. He. Sorry, the earth wants to move with me, so it shakes and groans. I don't move like this often, but you're new, so I won't pull any trick yet, ha ha ha. Grogville said with a laugh that vibrated my insides, giving me a bit of a sick feeling in my stomach. Whoa, that is a laugh, I think I just got a full body workout from that. I said, and I had to roll my shoulders and do a bit of stretching, my body felt stiff. That is one of his specialties, but we need to get going. I will be sending him and some misbegot monster girls with him tomorrow, and I would like you to help train them. I will also be sending Nushi, so be sure to take it easy on the girls, Mex said pointedly at the Grovel, who nodded to him and then melted into the ground. I looked around for him, but he was gone, and not even a pebble from him was left. Come, let's go, there are still 3 more to see. Next up is Wataluga, up at the waterfall, but we will have to walk to groom the path, Mex said, waving me forward. What is this Wataluga like? I asked as I caught up. You will see, I am going to point in the direction of some things you might want to check out, but I ask that you do so alone and not with my daughter. Can you see over to the right? There is smoke coming from the volcano, Mex pointed and told me as we walked. I see the smoke, but I don't see any volcanoes. Am I missing something here? I asked as we continued on. Sorry, these are like craters, but we call them volcanoes. Some interesting species live near and in the lava lake that is at the bottom, but they have been having some issues with a gluttonous female magma spider that is making it hard for the other monsters to live, and I think they are about to get rid of her. Maybe you could go and see if there is anything you can do about her. Mex asked curiously. I don't really like the heat, but I can take a look when I have some free time, and I can survive on my own, I said to him as I watched my surroundings change around me. The forest seemed to be slowly turning into a jungle as the tree became more twisted and the leaves larger. The trees were now blocking out the sun, but the humidity slowly rose the further we walked, but soon Mex pointed to the left. You can see them, but there is a huge pair of caves not too far apart. There are 2 creatures that, well, they don't cause trouble. It's just that. Well, they aren't very good at being monsters, and I have had them under protection for some time. One is scared of almost everything, and I had to put her in a maze to keep her safe, Mex explained but didn't say anything about the second one. What should I be looking for in this maze? And what's the deal with the second one? I asked, figuring there was going to be 1 or 2 massive butts to enter the next thing Mex said. Jessable is a Minostian, not common around here, but there are some tribes on the mainland. The other girl is a manticore, but she has a sad story, and I don't want to get into it right now, you can ask Nushi about it here. Tiga was abandoned by one parent and is still haunted by the other, and she is a mixed breed manticore, Mex told me as we started to get closer to some water, I could hear the dull roar of a waterfall in the distance. What's the other half? I asked with suspicion. A kraken, but it was her mother that abandoned her. The manticore father wanted to devour her because she is a disgrace to his kind or something like that. The point is that she needs help, and her father is slowly getting stronger. Soon, I won't be able to prevent him from getting to her, Mex said seriously. Sure, add it to the list of monstrous women that I need to save, I said, rolling my eyes. This guy was just playing me like a fiddle to take care of all of his problems, but I could hardly fault him. You don't have to save them. I am just informing you about the locals, Mex said with a knowing smile. I don't have to, but you know that I will, I said with a sigh. See. That's the spirit, my boy. Now let's go see Wataluga. He will cheer you up or drown you, depending on his mood, Mex said with a smile. I sighed and shook my head, but I followed. Chapter 26. Demons, only as bad as the worst one. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The roar of the waterfall was very relaxing, and it helped me center my thoughts a bit. I was fortunate that Mex had taken a liking to me and that he was showing me around. I was starting to gather small bits of the puzzle with the clues that I was being left. Each one of them slowly made me more confident in the choice that I had made at the start. Wataluga, I have brought a guest to meet you, and I would like you to do some work with him, Mex called out to the pool of water, but it wasn't the pool that started to talk. Oh, yeah, brought me a little bean. Pink skin. What do you want me to do? He will just be the red stuff under the pink if you let me at him. The voice came from the center of the roaring waterfall where the face of an old wizardly-looking face and a beard that was defined in the waterfall. The face was huge, and the voice was booming, but then it disappeared, and a little old wizard-shaped form of water rose up at the edge of the water. Kazir will be fine, but I will be sending some girls with him as well, and you will only have them in the pond. Do I make myself clear? Because my daughter will be with them, and you know how I feel about Nushi. Mex said rhetorically and seriously. This was starting to worry me a bit. This was the second time now that Mex had got severe with the elementals about going easy on the girls. Now, I was starting to get worried. What was the training going to be? I pushed that feeling down hard. I deserved this. I would have been getting just as hard, but in different ways, if I would have joined the army. So, what do you think you are going to do with this young hairless monkey? Wataluga asked Mexico. Don't worry about that for now. I just need you to get the boy stronger so Nishi doesn't eat him right away or try to kill him. If I can get you to make him tougher, then he might have a chance to make it off the island, and you know what that means for you four, Mex explained to the undulating wizard. Well, when you put it like that, I supposed I could do a workover on the boy and the girls. Honestly, Mex, don't you think you are getting a little carried away with helping all these monsters? Why don't you just kill them and eat them like the other demons do? Wataluga asked. I have my reasons, and you have your orders. Am I understood? Mex asked pointedly, and Wataluga nodded and sank back into the water. Mex turned and waved for me to follow without saying another word. The demon lord may seem like a pushover at times, but I could tell that he was serious about his daughter and her safety. You're quite a bit different than the other demons of your kind, aren't you? You seem way too nice, and from the way the others around you talk, that seems to be considered a weakness among your race, yes? I asked, trying to make idle conversation as we walked towards the smoke that Mex had pointed out before. Yes, a bit, but I try to keep some bit of control over the creatures in my domain, but you are right. The others of my kind are far more ruthless and cruel than I am, but we aren't all the same, and the other lesser demons act that way when their leader does. As you can see with the people in my keep, they all have personality, but most of them are friendly and relaxed for the most part, Mex explained. Okay, so then the demon race is a bit of a hive mind then, except for your kind. The rules not only rules over everyone and tells them what to do. They also tell them how to feel and act, so then, does that mean that there are good demons on the mainland? I asked as the humidity started to leave the air, but it was replaced with drier and hotter heat. The trees around us were starting to change, getting thinner and more spaced out. The ones that were up ahead were all leafless, and it was starting to look like we were walking into a wasteland. Even the ground was slowly turning black. It is the same as here, there are more bad than good, but that is the world we live in. There is always someone trying to get stronger than the rest, so that breeds fierce competition. Anyways, up ahead is Fire Den, and he is the nicest out of the group, but that is his shortcoming, Mex explained as the heat started to get to be like I was walking inside of an oven. Him being the nice one is a bad thing? I asked in confusion as I also painted breathing the hot air in. It was almost like it was cooking me from the inside out with each breath. My lungs were starting to feel scorched, and I was just about to ask Mex to wait, but then it slowly became easier to breathe. The change wasn't fast, but soon I could breathe more manageable, and I was able to catch up to Mex, who started to speak when I did. He must have been waiting for this to happen and know that I would recover somehow. When you first got to this world, your body went through some changes. One of those things and the most major is your body's ability to adapt to your environment in this world. There are some places like this where there are multiple different environments, but there will also be places when the weather patterns change suddenly and dramatically. Your body is slowly getting used to this heat, and soon this will seem like a normal summer day, Mex told me with a smile as we walked up to a massive crater in the ground. Chapter 27. Don't try, you will hurt yourself. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The crater had to be over 1,000 meters wide and almost as deep. It was like looking into a whole other world down there, and one that was hard to comprehend. I could see serpents and other monsters swimming in the hot pools of lava below, but there was also a small town that I could just barely see in the far-off distance. Many creatures were moving down below, but it was nearly impossible to make them all out from this distance. Pretty interesting place. This is actually the smallest fire lake on the island, but the other two are controlled by the other two demon lords, and the last one is controlled by a fire worm. This one contains the more timid monsters, and it also houses Fire Den, who watches over the area, Mex explained as we walked up to the edge of the crater. You said that there was a magma spider that was causing trouble here. Where is she, and what is a magma spider? I asked curiously. I didn't see anything in the crater that looked like a giant web, but maybe she had another way of attracting and trapping her victims. No, you won't see Liza right now, she only comes out at night. So, you will have to come and explore Krata's nightlife to catch her, but that is for another time. Now you get to watch something that I always enjoy, Mex said, and then he turned to the crater and yelled out Fireden's name across the crater. At first, there was only the echo of this voice, but then I noticed something starting to happen in the biggest lake of fire. The surface was beginning to stretch and move, and it began to swell up. I watched as little tiny monsters started to let out small screams that I could barely hear from so far away, and they started to run from the fire lake. The lava became a giant hand that pulled a body and a massive wave of lava that all the screaming monsters were caught up in and then slowly pulled itself out. Hey! I thought you said that these guys were not titans. I shouted out in shock at Mex, but he just grinned at me. Fire Den is only about 35 meters tall and hardly considered a titan. When you make it to the mainland, you will be able to meet real titans, but they aren't even the scariest of what you will meet, Mex explained to me calmly as the skyscraper of a lava-coated man started to stand himself up. That I initially thought that the giant was killing the monster, but I could see monsters moving around inside him. Some with just their heads poking just out of his flowing lava skin, while others were swimming around. Fire Den is the protector of this area, and all the creatures love him, but they don't get all swept up when he comes to see me. This is why you will have to be careful. Fire Den is a kind and gentle soul that will help you build up your physical and magical resistances, Mex explained as we stepped back. Fire Den was getting closer now, and he was climbing up the side of the crater. So I will need to watch out for him to make sure that I don't accidentally get turned into carbon. I asked as we continued to back up. The heat was out of this world, even with my body trying to get used to it, I was still boiling over. Not like it would make a difference, there was no getting used to pure fire. No, I want you to make sure that my daughter does not get hurt. I don't care what you do, but I would prefer you not die. I am putting in a lot of effort for all of this to help you, but I am sure you know that I am only trying to do what is best for my daughter. Now, stop asking stupid questions, and let's get this over with, Mex said, a bit perturbed. Sure, fine, you're the boss, I said, spinning my finger in the air, but that got a glare from Mex as the fire elemental poked his head up about their ridge. You know, a bit of fear might give you a bit more understanding, or maybe some more common sense. Mex growled at me, and I shrugged. I was sure that he was trying to use his fear aura or whatever it was on me, but my system made me like grease, and Mex's fear was just a watered-down stare. I understood what he meant, though, and I nodded to him in understanding. Mex turned from me, looking a bit less peeved, but I could understand what he was getting at. He wasn't doing this for me, this was to help his daughter, so helping me was the best way to achieve his ends. This was using me, but I was also using him to get stronger so that I could survive in his world, but I needed him more than he needed me. If I died, he would just have to wait for another person to stumble through that gate just like I did. I would be dead, and I would also never get to see the girls again. I didn't want either of those things to happen, so I would take all of this far more seriously now. Sorry, I am focused now. Still trying to wrap my head around all of this, I said with a half-dot smile, but Mex turned his head and looked at me thoughtfully as the massive head of fire poked over the ridge thoroughly. Don't try to wrap your head around this world, you will hurt yourself, Mex told me with a severe look, but that made me roll my eyes, and Mex smiled. There is a lot to learn in this world, and too much for one day, so just absorb what you can and pay attention to the important parts. Chapter 28. Otherworld Problems, How Does That Even Happen? You are listening at NovelFull.audio. We both had to stand back from the massive face of churning molten lava. My skin started to steam, and Fire Den, the giant fire elemental, started to laugh, but it was only loud. It was nothing like the body vibrating experience that I had got when Grovel started to laugh, but the heat that poured off this guy was no joke. Even Mex was forced to step back with me, and now I was leaking steam like I had just hopped out of a hot tub at the Banff ski resort in the Rockies. Where did you find this one? Soaking in the ocean for a week, and decided to bring him for a little story. Fire Den asked in a surprisingly weaselly sounding voice, not what I expected after the hearty laugh. I am just bringing him to visit, but tomorrow he will be coming to see you with Nushi and some girls, Mex explained as he fanned himself with his hand. Oh. I get to tell stories to little Nushi. She loves my stories, and maybe now that she is older, she will be able to stay longer. Fire Den said excitedly, forcing us to take another couple of steps back. My skin was on fire, and I was starting to feel dizzy. I was starting to get a headache, and I was no longer producing any spit. Suddenly, things started to get blurry, and I felt my body just give up on me, and I started to fall. Mex caught me and pulled me back, waving to Fire Den. The boy is new to this, so you had better make sure they have lots of water. Mex shouted as he dragged me away from the burning face. Slowly, my body returned to its average temperature, but I was still severely dehydrated. I assumed Mex was going to stop and give me something to drink, but he didn't. As I was dragged, I could feel my body tightening and compacting, but I couldn't even talk because my mouth was so dry. My body was changing again, but not the same extreme pain before, but my muscles were all getting smaller. Over the last 3 meetings, you have the 3 jokes, but now you will meet Windorf. He is not a joker, but he also has a problem that I will need your help with, Mex explained. Mex hadn't said anything about when I was being left out to dry as he pulled me, but I groaned for him to continue. There had to be a point to this other than destroying years of work to get these muscles, but maybe it was fitting. Windorf somehow had a child, and he is a horrible father. He wants her to be like him, but she likes to dress and hang out with her only friend, my daughter. His daughter is part Undine, and don't ask me how it happened, I wasn't there, and I am not asking him. Mex told me, and I groaned. Not like there was a lot to say, not like I could think either, my mind was a mess, and all I could think about was water. My body was still shrinking, and now the muscle tightening was getting a lot worse, and pain started to come from my major muscle groups as I was dragged. This is good, looks like we have got you with some real muscle on you, even if it's not very much. Mex said as he let go of me, and I flopped the rest of the way to the ground. I rounded over, but I didn't have the strength to lift my arms, let alone get up and back on my feet. Mex walked over to me and then crouched down beside my head. The muscle that you gained in the other world was not dense enough for you to survive here. I have got you ready to meet Windorf, and after I give you this drop of blood, you will be back to feeling normal, somewhat. I am going to give you a single drop of my blood, and it will revitalize you, but it will also put you in a bit of a frenzied state, but only temporarily, Mech said as he nicked his thumbs on one of his sharp canine's teeth in his mouth. I wanted to complain, but Mex had yet to do anything, other than this that would be considered harmful to me. Mex also explained that there was a reason for leaving me dehydrated this entire time, so I would just have to trust that what he was doing with his blood would help me. Now, I need to tell you one thing about demon's blood, powerful stuff, but highly addictive. This one small drop will be fine, and I will allow Nushi to give you some of her, but only if you are close to death. If you make a connection with her, then there will be less of a chance that it will permanently change you into a demon, and from what I have explained to you, that won't be a good thing, Mex explained, and then let the drop fall into my mouth. That was a promise if I had ever heard one, but I didn't have time to process what I thought as the drop of dark blue liquid splashed into my mouth. Instantly my body started to seize and shake, and I could feel ice-cold lava pumping into my veins. It was like I was frozen on the outside and on fire on the inside, but whatever it was, it didn't last for long. Suddenly, I was standing up and ready to go. I was like someone had pumped full of pure adrenaline, and I was ready to run a race or kick some ass. I looked down at my new thin and lean, but rock muscles and my body felt heavier. This was wild, I was just dead on the ground, and now I was ready to take on anything that got my way, but that was the catch. I understood when it was so dangerously addictive, but now I had more questions, but I wanted to hit things. Gah. The choices. Otherworld problems. Chapter 29. OOOHOOHOO. Barracuda. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Now that I was no longer dry as a fart in a sandstorm, Mex waved for me to follow with a sly smile. I felt like I was missing something, but that was completely reasonable considering what I had just gone through. It had been hard enough already to follow what he had been saying about the last elemental that we were going to meet, but I was interested in the daughter. I caught up to Mex and was about to ask him about her, but he put up a finger just as I was about to speak. Don't bother, you won't see her this time anyways. If you survive this, then I have picked properly, if not, well, you know, Mex said as the evergreen trees started to become denser, and soon the rock plateau was visible from a distance. Soon the trees became too thick, and I lost the rock outcropping, but one thing that I was able to notice was the constant vines and hissing flowers. I don't remember seeing them near the fire lake, but there would be no way that they could survive there anyways. Hey, what is with the flowers and vines? They seem to be everywhere we go, I asked Mex without saying, up this time as I started to be able to make out the rock plateau again. Those are my wife's creations, and they run everywhere. She uses them to check up on things for me, Mex said as the plateau came into full view. So she can hear us? I asked, a bit worried. No, only see us, Mex said, but that didn't make me feel any better. Someone that would have an ability like that would probably learn how to read lips pretty fast, but I wasn't about to go putting strange thoughts into his head. I would just have to keep a hold of this bit of knowledge, but maybe Nishi was right. What do you want, great demon lord of nothing? Called a wisped and condescending voice from the plateau. I am here to bring you a student, just like you asked, Mex said while holding a straight face. This is what was spit out, and that's what you brought me after all this time. I respect your actions, just not the man behind them, so I will test this breath, the condescending voice said as we stepped onto the rock ledge that overlooked a beautiful green valley. As we stepped onto the platform, the wind picked up, and the streams became white and visible until they coalesced. The shape of a white armored knight appeared, but I couldn't see his face because the visor of his helmet was down, closing off his face if he had one. This is him, so do not relax. Your life's on the line, get your weapon out. Mex hissed at me, and I grabbed at my bet and found what I needed. I still somehow managed not to lose my flame saber, so I lit it up as the Windborn Knight drew a pale, long, and narrow sword. The thing was a child's toy compared to the massive blade that Mex used, but something told me to be prepared. I just want to be able to protect the girls and be the strongest in the world. Is that too much to ask for? I asked as I brought my sword up, and that probably saved my life. White and red sparks filled the air as Windorf slammed into me from out of nowhere. I felt the force, but he only made me slide back, but only a little bit. Once I got my footing, I was able to shove the Air Knight back, and I held my sword up as the elemental landed gently on the ground and then put his sword away. That was close, but I was ready now, and I wouldn't be caught like that again, I hoped. You can come tomorrow after you go through the training with the other three, but properly, or I'll just kill you next time, Windorf said and then blew away like smoke on the wind. I was confused about what had just happened. Did I win? Was it even a test? I guess being alive was my reward for passing. Well done, the chance is really on your side today. Well, now you have met your teachers, and you know what you have to do, so let's go see what the pack of fish faces are so worked up about, Mech said as he waved me forward to follow him across the plateau. Well, that one would be fun to deal with. I would have died if I had acted a second later, but I didn't, and that was what mattered. Is he always so abrupt? I asked in confusion. Yes, but you will need to do more than just block him. Windorf is a wind elemental, so do not fear hurting him, and go for the kill every time you want to make any progress with him. That or he will just kill you out of boredom, Mex explained to me, and I nodded, understanding what he meant. I needed to get stronger and faster. Mex had warned me that there was a chance that I could die, but the new strength that he had helped me get helped as well. I would have never guessed that I was getting training from each visit. So, do you know why the Sahuagin are bothering your village? I asked as we walked back into the forest, but Mex started to run, and I had to catch up. They constantly come and bother the villagers because their cute white will only have anything to do with them once a year. The females have more scaled bodies, but they have female faces, and they are all beautiful, and they constantly cheat on them with other races. So, the male Sahuagin mope, whine, and cry to anyone that will listen and everyone that won't. Lately, I have heard more about it, so I decided it was time to check things out, Mex explained as we ran through the forest. The sun was slowly starting to set, and it was getting darker bit by bit, but I could smell the ocean breeze as we got closer. I heard the waves before I even saw the water, and we came out just as the sun was starting to touch the water. The water was almost blinding as we came out, and I had to put my hand up to block it. I could see a small village, and there were also 2 long floating docks, but the village only consisted of maybe 10 huts. Then I saw the group of sorry souls. Maybe about 15 bluish-green men were walking in circles, and all I could hear was bitching and moaning. Well, they seem more worked up than normal, Mex said as we started towards them, but the one noticed us. Oh great demon, Lord Mexico hoo. Barracuda men came and took all our women. Hoo. And they took Missy too. Hoo. The fish-faced Sahuagin cried, making horrible crying noises, and then Mex turned to me. Looks like I have another job for you, Mex said with a grin that made me want to punch him in the kisser. Chapter 30. Shocking, a decent demon lord. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The trip back to the castle went by fast, and I was surprised that I could keep up with Mex on the way back. The man ran incredibly fast, but I was somehow able to barely keep up. We only slowed down when we reached the place where we first stopped to talk, and Mex had tried to test me. After slowing down, I was able to walk comfortably with him, so I decided to grill him a bit. You said that I couldn't hold my breath long enough. Does that mean that you think I will be able to rescue someone in a single breath of air? I asked, trying not to sound incredulous, but failing. Mex didn't answer me at first, but I could tell that he was thinking about something, so I left him be. There was no point in trying to badger him for the information, and after a short moment, he began to speak. When you go to meet with Jezabel, there will be something at the center of the maze that will help you. The item you will be looking for will be the Cloak of Manta Ray, and there will be some other items in there as well, but they are all just barely above the rarity of common. It is really just a place I put things that don't have a purpose for, Mex explained as we walked through the dark forest that moved to create a path for us. So is Jezebel one of those things that didn't have a purpose? I asked curiously. No, well, maybe. Minoschans are an uncommon breed of minotaur, and their milk is highly sought after, but Jezebel will not let anyone near her. So, yes, I suppose you're right, but I don't think of her that way. If you can find a way to tame her and can milk her, then I will reward you greatly, Mex explained as the road to the keep slowly started to become visible through the trees. The moon was bright tonight, and when the two of us stepped out of the forest, we were both bathed in silver moonlight. I could see the bridge and keep that was down the road away as we started to walk back. So tomorrow, when I am done with training, and I bring the girls back, I am supposed to go deal with Jezebel? I asked, but Mex shook his head. No, you need to go take care of the mantican first, Mex told me. What about the Sahuagin women? Are we just going to leave them to the Barracuda women? I asked, but the Mex stopped and rounded on me, and he looked mad. You can only do what you can do. Or you cannot listen to what I say and go and die. I thought that you would be understanding by now that I am trying to help these people. I know that they are down there, and there is nothing that either of us can do, so I don't need a constant reminder that there is nothing we can do. Mex thundered at me, causing me to take a step back. I wasn't scared of him, but I was shocked by his words and their meaning. I had just assumed that Mex only had ulterior motives in mind, but this reaction said that these people meant more to him than he was willing to admit, even to himself. You're right, and I am acting like a child about this, thinking that I can just fix everything right away just because I think that it's wrong. You have been dreaming about this for far longer than I have, so I will stop asking the same baseless questions. I just have a hard time hearing about women being hurt or abused, I explained as we reached the bridge. Yes, we will save them, as long as you understand that, listen to what I say, and do as I request. I placed these other two in places that they would be safe for now, but the safety for the mantican is not going to be there forever. At some point, her father will get to her, and all the work I have done to keep her safe will be for nothing. Mex raged, stopping just before that bridge. What made you help this girl? I can understand the others, but you have aligned interests with the magma spider and the Minoschan, but what does helping the mantican do for you? I asked, not trying to be rude, but Mex had said himself that he never did something without a reason that would profit him. This is personal, was all Mex would say, and then he turned back to the keep and started to walk across the bridge. I followed him. At this point, I had learned enough to know if he wanted me to know or I needed to know, he would tell me. This seemed to be one of those things, so I decided to leave it be for now. Welcome home, Great Demon, Lord Mex, and Kaz. The nice guard that I hadn't learned his name yet called to us as we walked up to the gate. Thank you, Spell. How is Liddy doing? Close to popping out your little junior? Mex asked with a smile. All traces of the stern expression had left him, and now he seemed to be back to his carefree self. For a demon, Mex was turning out to be pretty human, and I was glad that I had made a choice to come to this castle. I would probably be in the bottom of some old lady's stomach right now if I hadn't met him. Trig just waved at Mex and received a nod from him in return, then we headed to the keep. The castle grounds were empty, but the place was bathed in silver moonlight as we walked up to the keep's entrance. If you take a right around the fountain and then keep going straight, there is a large pair of swinging doors that lead to the kitchen. Tell Liddy that I sent you, and she will show you everything that you will need to prepare food for the girls. She will also be able to tell you the type of foods the girls will like, Mex said as he opened the keep door.